Welcome to this short video on reflective practice for mediators. And joining me is a good friend of mine, Davy Gray. He's a mediation specialist and the managing mediator with the Legal Aid Board. So, Davy, thanks a minute for joining me here. I have lovely memories of you. We studied our masters in mediation together. And what I really liked about you is one is your expertise, your insights, your empathy, your kindness. And what a lot of people who come across you will probably get this feedback a lot is your presence, and that ability to be reflective. So I'm really excited to chat to you here today about reflective practice. So with that in mind, reflective practice, like why is that important for a mediator? What's the context of mediation? Why should you do it in the first place?
Yeah, thanks very much, William, and thanks so much for that lovely introduction as well. And again, it's very kind of you to kind of attribute me to those sentiments. I suppose in terms of mediation, why is it important? I think mediation is just the profession where, for me, I've through my career found myself really gravitating towards, because I think in terms of your ability to understand your own motivations,
Yeah.
your own biases, your own context in terms of
Mm.
how you work. Just the ability to understand that is so important, because we are the products of our environment. We're
Yeah.
the products of the people that influence us, the cultures that we grow up in. And reflective practice, I suppose, won't answer all of those questions, of course not, but it just allows a space. And it's a rare thing to see in any profession whereby you can take a step back and really generate. And I think the most important learning that we can generate is from our own self discovery.
Yeah.
And again, that's the essence of reflective practice. It is our ability to take a step back, maybe with the support of somebody outside of us who's just
Yeah.
there as a sounding board, to kind of just probe and examine and offer a kind of I suppose it's like holding a mirror up, saying,
Yeah.
what were you thinking there? What was the standout moment for you there? Following that experience, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Those types of open ended questions that are just simply based on you and how you view your own performance. I know I'm kind of a bit of a long winded answer, but for me, I suppose the importance of being able to have that space for any mediator will make you a better mediator. That's the way I would see it.
Yeah. And we were just talking beforehand. A lot of people, when they're doing their mediation assessment, they get caught up in the assessment as if it's an exam. And Davey,
Mm-hmm.
I was making the point then that the assessment is really reflective practice. It's just getting you road ready because, bit like the agreement to mediate, this is really essential, isn't it? The reflective practice after every mediation is through that reflective piece, isn't it?
It is, because we have a responsibility to keep a check on ourselves. And, for whatever reason, you might perform really, really well in one mediation and, might find that there's plenty of learnings from another. And if you can put some measure of thought into why one thing went one direction for you and one thing the other,
Yeah.
you will learn from that. You will perform better as a mediator, and our clients benefit from that. So we do have a responsibility in terms of that, but also in terms of self care. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of any mediator setting out, or maybe midway through their career, if you want to stay the pace,
Yeah.
and it's hard work. It's hard work being in front of conflict all day, every day.
Yeah.
Reflective practice will ground you. It will skill you, obviously, in terms of what you learn from one session to the next. But it'll allow you a venue to kind of process and make sure that you're okay in yourself and build that. I don't really like the word resilience, but that ability to be in the long run, in a greater way. I think it just enhances your chances of developing out your career, because without reflective practice, nobody is immune to the, I suppose, the impact that maybe a conflict can have on them. And if mediators are facing that every day, that takes its toll over a period of time. So it's hugely important in terms of self-care, and can be achieved in many ways, one of which being, of course, support and supervision, which is greatly encouraged in the mediation sector.
So I had a chat with Michael Lang about this before. I made a podcast on that. So if you're looking at this, check out that podcast. And he was chatting about making sense of the choices that we made in the mediation and learning from that. It might be in a mistake that you made or something afterwards where you're going, oh, I wish I did something differently, or why was it I did that or didn't trust my instinct or whatever. And I know for myself, Davey, that I sometimes find it hard to let mediations go.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of goes on in my head and something doesn't sit right with me. And sometimes I need to, unwrap that or unravel that. Why am I holding on to this? There's something there that just didn't sit right. And I think that's a big element there of when you go into reflective practice. And we'll talk about what that looks like is it you kind of share what happened without naming anything, isn't it? That
Mm-hmm.
what we do. And then really reflective practice is people just ask you gentle, probing questions in a curious way, isn't it? You're really good at this. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, of course, with Michael Lang's work, again, having kind of, I suppose, learned a little bit from that, again, in terms of asking those types of questions, when you're in that role, asking them of the mediator, it's so important that you make clear to them that you're not there to offer your opinion or advice or recommendations.
Yeah,
You're just there as a process holder, really, for a debriefing exercise that all questions asked are non-judgmental and as much as possible non-leading. So
mm,
yes, so that non-judgmental place where you're at, I suppose, the ability to be able to speak as freely as you need to, without fear of judgments
yeah,
is so important, because I think, we're also probably our own worst critics and our own worst judges a lot of the time. And maybe with somebody else, that fear is still there, that you might be judged in terms of your actions. But that's not what the reflective practice slash debrief space is meant to achieve.
yeah,
It's just that ability to look again back on your own performance in a
yeah,
way that's balanced and fair,
yeah,
um, and again without fear of favor or kind of punishment,
yeah,
for want of a better word. So again, it's just another, I suppose, vehicle in which you can maybe get a small bit more insight from yourself, to be honest,
yeah.
in terms of how you performed in any one particular moment, one aspect of a mediation. That's all it really is. Yeah.
And people do that in different ways, don't they? So, like my own practice will be I will write notes first, and then I'll write bullet points, and then I'll walk away from it, and then I might go for a walk or something like that,
Mm,
and go back to it and kind of going, right, what are the key things that kind of landed with me? What was going on for them?
yeah.
Maybe what was going on for me, you know? Um, and like the big thing obviously comes up is like, are you following impartiality and self-determination? All those aspects there. And then I might talk to someone about it, and then I might go to a sharing and learning group and share a case, and then present that, as for a reflective practice session there. So there's many different ways, isn't there, Davey,
Oh,
to
certainly.
approach this?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those kind of self-reflective pieces are vitally important. The sharing and learning group that you mentioned there, again, you'll have many eyes on a situation, and again, with, I suppose, the person who's familiar with the profession can kind of just give you little tidbits here and there that just, again, it's something to consider more than a definitive course of action. I don't,
Yeah,
we'll each get different things from sharing and learning groups, but also from I suppose a support and supervision structure. Having that kind of person, that kind of guiding, you know eye, if you like, on maybe something that's troubling you. Again, there's a release in that that's really important as well. So there's a whole manner of means in which people can reflect themselves, reflect with others, you know
yeah,
again, get a kind of a group view on things as
yeah,
well. That, yeah, I suppose we'll all find a combination that works for us.
yeah,
And yeah, keep trying. I think if you're asking those questions in any format, you're doing the right thing. Again, if you find that you're in a situation where you're kind of in the motions with your mediation, then that's
yeah.
the place to maybe stop and say, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on for me here, and what else can I tap into to kind of get back to that real self-discovery place that we all like to be in as professionals.
Yeah. And that's that self-awareness and self-discovery then. And this is a consistent practice, isn't it? So we were saying it's a bit like we're getting you ready for road when you're doing the assessment.
Yeah.
Like the reflective practices, even though you might have closed out the mediation and formally closed it with an email or in writing or whatever,
Mhm.
this is essentially the last part is like a review of your self-assessment, how you did, what worked well, what kind of like were the opportunities where you might have missed or and you're just teasing that out slowly. I think it's a case of giving yourself time, is it? Because you talked at the start about sustainability. The
Mhm.
only way to do this is to set time aside for this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and to be disciplined about that. Again,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. We're all so busy these days that could easily be pushed out to next week or the next month or
Yeah.
6 months time. Because again, it's maybe not as immediate as some of the priorities we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But I think to be, I suppose, focused, and you will reap the benefits if you
Yeah.
take the time to debrief, reflect on what's just happened. Again, there's a value in keeping, I suppose, efficacy with that philosophy. You mentioned there earlier the principles of mediation and impartiality, and again, making sure that we always have our eye on the ball in terms of
Yeah.
those types of principles. It's so important. And the other thing about mediation is, again, we're not often in the position where we get to find out what happens to the clients after they leave our mediation
Yeah.
space. And I suppose reflective practice allows us some measure of, maybe closure is the wrong word,
Yeah.
but certainly some finality to the
Yeah.
process. That's about us, not necessarily about the clients,
Yeah.
because they'll take whatever agreement they have and they'll bring it to whatever stage they have next. You may
Yeah.
never find out about that. But if
Yeah.
you look back, maybe with the eye of a third party over a
Mm.
process, or just again, as you said there, go back to what's happened in the room a few hours
Yeah.
before. Um, Again, that closure might happen more readily for you,
Yeah.
because you're not leaving it open ended in your own mind, at least, and
Yeah.
taking what you can take from it. And again, always building to your
Yeah.
next, hopefully, mediation, and learning from the last every single time.
And I think that's really important because you talk about resilience or sustainability as a profession. And I think to protect you from burnout is that struggle is if you really care for people, it's very hard to let go then because you have to build up that rapport with them, you have to connect with them, but you're really being objective as well about what's the issue that they're trying to resolve,
Mhm.
and did you do right by everybody? And I think that's where it does take that view of several people to get you that balance, you to say, okay, well, here's something, reflect on this question. Then you realize, oh, you might be tough on yourself. And then it's that reassurance to go, listen, this is how we become masters at this, is learning from our mistakes, isn't it? So there's that piece of self empathy as part of this as well, isn't there?
Definitely, definitely, and I think again that self care is exactly what you're hitting on there,
Yeah,
and look, I think it's so useful for every, particularly new mediators, to know that nobody ever gets it 100% right in any mediation ever.
yeah,
That just is
yeah,
not achievable, and you might maybe missed a moment in the mediation,
yeah,
that if you maybe spend that bit of time after the fact and say, okay, I didn't get to say that then, but I know now, that maybe that could have happened, and you will learn and you will be able to kind of build that skill in, each time. So again, we're none of us going to be able to run the perfect mediation. That just simply isn't realistic.
yeah,
And we can strive towards our best, highest standards. And one way to do that is simply just to allow maybe even mistakes to be acknowledged as mistakes.
yeah,
Um, no mistake is ever lost if you look back on it and say, okay, well, maybe just for the next mediation, I'm gonna do this slightly differently. Um, and again, thinking of things in a positive sense, if you found something that works in a particular scenario, that's gold dust maybe for the next set of clients. That
yeah,
no two journeys are ever the same, of course not, but you have a bank of, I suppose, tools in your toolbox that you can say, okay, I remember this case, this scenario arose, and again, I might ask this question at this juncture as a result. Beautiful. It's wonderful when that kind of opportunity comes along, and that's when you're into, I suppose, the higher level of service that maybe we all strive to reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where when you said the word mistake then, and I heard this years ago and I love it. It's a mistake. So
Yes.
you're taking it again. So next time you go to take that, mediation, then
Hmm.
you're taking this in a whole, it's a new script, a new page. Let's move on. And again, it's new people, a new journey. So if you were to give some mediators then who are early in their journey some advice
Hmm.
on reflective practice, what might that be?
Yeah, I think again, use your network is always brilliant. I'm again coming back to my own motivations as to why working now as a mediator. I always found that people within the mediation industry
Yeah,
very forthcoming
yeah,
as a profession. Even if in some ways they're your competitor,
yeah,
doesn't matter. People are out there to help.
yeah,
And again, reach out to those people who might have been in your space at one stage in their careers as well. Um, I've always found, I could pick up the phone to people that
yeah,
maybe we went on that master's course with William, or, that
yeah,
I found at various conferences along the way
yeah,
on LinkedIn. I
yeah,
think there's a willingness there amongst mediators to make sure that everybody in our profession is able to ask those types of questions that we all need to ask at one stage in our careers. And, I think reach out. You won't be disappointed. I'd say 9 times out of 10, you'll get a response every single time. And if people can help you directly, they will. And if they won't, they'll signpost you to someone who can. I've found that so prevalent in mediation. It's a wonderful thing.
this has been a wonderful conversation, Davy, and I think we need to summarize that reflective practice can take many shapes and forms. So we've been very loose on what that looks like. I've my practice, you have a practice that works for you. And I think because mediation is such a broad church of different approaches and even different types of mediation, that there's no one practice what to do. Saying that, we do have resources like Michael Lang, that is you know what can we say about Michael Lang that hasn't been said before? He's just, such an expert in this area. So we've articles there, we've the podcast with the videos, and then it is finding out, as you said, that network, you're sharing a learning group, or just pick up the phone to people who are very much versed in reflective practice, and they will ask you questions then instead of giving you feedback, isn't it? Isn't that the thing
Yeah.
really, that because sometimes we can be defensive there. So just tell me a little bit about that while we're just going to finish up now, David, but just isn't the important part of reflective practice is that when you start having a chat between two people, then you can go into your own reflective practice and start asking yourself the questions then, and that's where that, I suppose, self-determination principle really comes to play for mediators themselves, especially when it comes to, I'm going to name this as self-compassion, that you're not going to be
Mhm.
too tough on yourself.
No, absolutely. And I think when you find that person in your life, who might be able to help you with that function, again, you'll be able to know because that person won't come with their stuff in inverted commas. They won't be there to say, I think, this is my opinion of what happened.
Yeah,
Again, with the best will in the world, that's off. There is a place for that, of course there is, and we'll all
yeah,
learn something that way. But really, the reflective practicer will challenge you to look in depth at yourself,
yeah,
and like I suppose again, bringing that analogy of holding a mirror up to what you've done in a particular session without offering that judgment, that sense of recommendation or advice that maybe we instinctually try to do a lot of the
yeah,
time. They necessarily won't do that. They will, I suppose, recognize the hidden value, often hidden, of self-learning and self-discovery that is so much more important than anything that I could say to a mediator by way of constructive criticism or otherwise.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as powerful as what you find from yourself when you engage in good reflective practice. I think that's the message I would send there.
Well, Davy Gray, thank you for that message and for taking the time here to talk about reflective practice.
Thanks. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.